So far we've been looking at block printing with one single block. Now I'd like to move on to actually creating patterns using two blocks, which is called block on block. Now you guys have already started, this is a piece of fabric that you printed earlier, and we're going to go back to that piece because what I'd like you to do is actually print a different block on top of the same design. Is that okay? So if you get started, now remember with your second block, a different block, print it exactly on top, all right? And because these blocks actually are the same size, they fit very well together and it's a very easy starting point. While you're doing that, I shall go on to showing you exactly what I mean by block on block. I'd like to show you how we created this new surface. We had this block here, which was printed with blue all across the piece of fabric. And once the whole piece of fabric was covered, we then covered this block again on top. So you've actually got two layers of different blocks of different colours on top of each other, which if you look closely really do create a very exciting texture. Also, this is exactly the same two blocks, but it creates a totally different look. If you see here, we've used the red and the blue, and it's very clear to see how the two colours have interacted and the two blocks.
How do you know which colours go and which ones don't?
I think, Rebecca, it's just a matter of trial and error. It's just a matter of having fun, playing with things, and just seeing what you actually like. I mean, here, this is a very deliberate complementary colour. So blue, sorry, I beg your pardon, purple and yellow are complementary colours, and these really blend in very nicely. And here we've got some, this is the first layer of the block. As you can see here, this was the block that we used for the first layer, and it looks quite intricate and it's very detailed. So I just hold that for you, you can see that very clearly. And then we got another block and printed on top of it. And can you see how that's created more depth, more layers, and more intrigue? So I personally think that once you get involved in block on block and finding the combination of blocks that you really love, you can create some absolutely beautiful things. I mean, in total contrast, there's a bag here that we've used two blocks, these two here. So can you see those? There's that block there we've used for the pink, and this block here we've used for the blue. And they're not actually on top of each other exactly, they're just slightly sort of freestyle. And so even freestyle works very well with the block on block. So again, with this block on block, you can apply whatever rules you like. All the rules that we've learned about rows and rotation and all that thing can actually be used with this, but again, with different blocks to create different stunning effects. One of the techniques that I particularly like is this bread basket. And working on a three-dimensional object can actually present you with a bit of a challenge sometimes. So if you look at this block here, we've got this block, and you can see that we've actually created this bread basket. But obviously, I can imagine looking at it, you think, well, how on earth do you get a neat impression of this block printing when it's actually very difficult to actually get a flat surface? Well, the technique for using those two blocks together would, of course, be to create something flat first. So what we would suggest you do is, if you're making something like a bread basket, then you assemble the whole thing first, and then once you've got a nice completed item, if you love it, obviously you can keep it like this, but I would then use this and actually block print directly. And the idea with these is to actually select certain areas that you want to block print, and it may be that some areas you leave plain with the two different blocks, and with some areas you might have them overlapping. It's completely up to you. There's another technique here. This background fabric was actually our serendipity cloth that we had, and we've used slightly overlapping block on block, and that worked very well. And this bag has been made with lined with some wadding, and then done some quilting with some gold thread, and I think that really, really works nicely. And there's a sort of nice coordinating inside. So let's see how you've been getting on. How's it been going, Rebecca?
It's been going fine.
Would you like to explain what you've got? That first row is really interesting. Can you explain the 3 different stages you've got there?
Well, basically I left 2 open because I had a gap there, so I printed the pink one there so that it shows you which blocks I used, and then I just went around and printed like the pink onto the green.
I think that's lovely. Well, you carry on finishing that. That's really lovely, and I think yours is looking lovely too, Fawzia. Would you like to explain what you've done?
Well, I quite like that there aren't any hard and fast rules about the particular type of block that you've used. So you can use larger blocks or smaller blocks on top of the original print, and they still come out looking quite nice.
It's lovely the way they kind of interlock, almost relate to each other, isn't it? I think it's because they're the same size. That's what kind of helps.
Yes, I was lucky with this one.
And again, it's just pot luck. You just have to experiment and play and find which blocks suit you. Lucy, let's see what you've been doing. Are you pleased with your work?
Yeah, I quite like it, except for on my first print. I think next time I'm going to do them a bit closer together.
Okay, well, I think you've done an absolutely fantastic job. We've all created some really, really beautiful, sumptuous fabrics. Now, obviously, having created this stash of your own designs, what are you going to do with them? Well, let's show you with a whole collection of ideas.